Hi, I'm Ricky Fort and welcome to the Real Estate 101 podcast. Join me as I lift the lid on the real estate industry and share some great stories from behind the scenes. Like and subscribe and enjoy this episode. So welcome guys, Geelong Real Estate Co. Ricky Fort here with the podcast Real Estate 101. I've got a very special guest today, an ex-client of mine. I suppose you're always a client, but Dale P, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mate, I've given you absolutely no prep work whatsoever because I just wanted to keep it authentic and on the fly and just talk a bit of nonsense really. But I know that's our forte, so we should 100%. Be fine. Mate, talk to us about how we met. So, yeah.
I met you through when I bought my third investment property.
Yep.
At that time. That was before you started doing your own thing.
Which one was that?
The one in Blue Gum Court.
Yep. Blue Gum Court in Corio. So tell people a bit about your background. So like where'd you go to school, like how old you are, that sort of jazz.
Currently 28. Went to Norlane High School back in the day before it all got bulldozed.
I heard they took it down because of you. They're like, this place is cursed.
Just a clear paddock now. Yep. They got sick of me there. They're like, nah, no more.
Yep. We can't do this to ourselves again. Yep. So, Norlane High.
Yeah, straight out of there. They basically told me you couldn't fail in school. So I was like, all right, well, this isn't going to go down well. So as soon as I could, jumped out of there, got into an apprenticeship.
Doing what?
Welding.
Yep.
So at the time, I just wanted to get out of school. For some reason, I always wanted to be a plumber. Didn't go anywhere near it.
Yeah.
So started doing the welding apprenticeship. Got almost finished that and started driving diggers and playing around in bobcats.
So you didn't finish that first?
I did, yeah.
Oh, that's all right. I was going to say, Mum would have killed you going all the way and dropping out at the last minute.
Yeah, started doing both and I was like, I really don't want to finish this. And she's just like, just get it done.
Are you glad you finished it?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Yeah. Even if you're never going to use it, I just think it's that, it's a discipline thing.
Yeah, it's always good to have something back to fall on. And when you're so close to finishing something, you just got to see it through, even though your heart might be a bit different.
Yeah, but into something else.
Yeah, you put so much time and effort into something, you may as well just finish off that last bit. And
yep, so welding and then into this, then what?
Yeah, and then just straight back into earth moving, which I sort of found a love and passion for.
Yeah.
You sort of go around getting burnt every day, welding and doing shit jobs, and you sit in a digger with the aircon on or the heater going, you're like,
this is all right.
This isn't too bad.
And it's kind of like a big kid toy thing, like playing with the tonkers and digging in the sandpit, and I get it.
Yeah, it's just sort of a big kid's dream.
Yeah.
You play around in the sandpit long enough and then sooner or later you get paid.
Is it your gear or you can wreck someone else's stuff?
I wreck someone else's stuff, yeah.
You got a shout out to the boss or what? So, mate, tell us about your property journey. So one thing, the reason why I wanted you to come on the story, that the show's all about, just people that have done different things in real estate, like done well, haven't done well. Yours, by the way, you have done well, so that's good news. I'm not going to throw you under the bus in it. But I kind of tell people about your background. Like, did you come from a family of like real estate investors? Do you come from like a affluent family? Do you come from like, what's your deal?
Not particularly. We sort of come from a family that sort of finances was never something that really talked about as much. Sort of as soon as you get out of school and whatnot, it was just sort of
get a job,
everyday life. Yeah, things go on. What's on for the weekend? That type of thing.
Day to day.
Yes, you might have to spend a bit of money on your car. There was never really too much thought about moving ahead in those further years, and it was sort of only as I sort of stepped away from my friends group at the time that were a bit younger and sort of started hanging out with some people a couple of years older.
Where did those people come from?
Mainly my cousin, a few of his mates, and that was sort of the 2-year gap type of thing. And you
found that 2 years was enough that they were talking about different stuff. It wasn't just about going to the pub. It wasn't just about they
were sort of setting up. They was talking about business wise and stuff like that. And I thought, cool. This is a bit different than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And then sort of something just got ingrained that I was like, all right, cool. Well, sooner or later, I'm going to have to be in that sort of picture and just sort of start setting up sooner or later.
I think I spoke about on another episode, you are the 5 people that you hang around, and when it's going well, you're around. Start the other way. When it's not going well, you hang around with dickheads, and you're just drinking and you doing stuff that young 20-year-olds do. Like I was the same, bought my first house at, I think it was 20, second investment property at 22, 25, so on and so on. But it wasn't till, I was the same. Like I just something small changed. I just hung out with one or two different people, and then my group started to change and the conversation started to change, and people were talking about reading books. Like in my group of friends that I grew up with in Ballarat, if you mentioned reading a book, you'd get bashed. It just wasn't the done thing. People just didn't talk about it. So yeah, tell us more about like the conversations that your mates and your cousins and stuff were having, and like did any of those guys have investment properties and any of those things?
Not at the time, but they were sort of at that stage where they were looking to buy. They were starting to earn good money, and then they were starting about, what can I buy, whether it be cars or something along those lines. And
do you think like a big part of your story or guys like your story is potentially that you've just earned, like your earning capacity is really big? Because there's obviously multiple ways to skin a cat. One's obviously to earn shitloads, and you don't have to be that great with money. Or two, like Lockie and stuff, you save every cent and you make it that way. There's obviously different ways to skin a cat, but I guess kind of how did it start for you?
At the time, I can't say I've ever really been on huge money apart from sort of where I am now, which is sort of EBA on the rail. That's probably been the biggest. And
if it's not weird, and we can edit it out, what sort of like it's a finance podcast.
This year I'll probably be 150K.
Yep.
Which isn't too bad.
What are they saying? I think they're saying the average is like 100, around 100,000. So like it's it's great money, but it's not astronomical.
I think when I bought my first one, I think I was on 75 a year.
Yep.
And I sort of just every year just sort of going up that 10, 15, not massive jumps, but just enough to be able to sort of move forward.
Yep.
And
so how old were you when you bought your first place?
22.
Yep.
My younger brother, he's the one that sort of started it all.
How?
He went straight into earth movement straight after he finished school.
Yep.
So he was always on that bit better money.
Sorry to jump in, is there a qualification for that?
No.
So if anyone's looking for a job in earthworks, tells you, man.
That's it.
Yeah. So he started it. Tell us what happened
he started it, and then eventually he was able to build up a deposit way before me because I was still on apprentice wage.
Yeah. So deposit back then, so like a 10 or did you have lender's mortgage insurance or?
I think at that time, I think he had 26 or 27 grand, just enough just to scrape through.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh.
And so what are you buying at that price point? That's a 10% deposit for a 260K property?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then at that point I was like, oh yeah, cool. I'm almost finished my apprenticeship.
So how old did you say again? Sorry, you were?
22.
Yeah.
And then, so that sort of led me to, all right, cool, I finished my apprenticeship. Now it's time for me to save.
Yep.
So then all of a sudden...
Did you feel like your lifestyle changed much? Because I guess I always try and think about who's going to listen to this episode and who it's relevant to, right? And there's different audiences for even just this one podcast, right? And I think the people that'll probably get the most out of it are those guys that are like in their young 20s who probably are spending a lot of their money on drinking and girls and partying and stuff like that. And it's like, so tell us about like what it takes to, change your attitude, change your mind and focus. I'm sure you still went on, mate, I follow you on social media. I know you still don't mind a party, but tell us about like, that lifestyle change to pull your finger out and have a crack.
Yeah, obviously there is a fair bit that you got to sort of give up. At one stage, I went back welding on weekends just because I needed that extra money.
That second job is a big theme, and I know people are talking about it now, but so you didn't mind, or you knew that's what it took?
Yeah, that's what it took. Like at that stage, I was like, it's only a Sunday, so Saturday nights I was still out for a little bit. I just wouldn't be out all night like I usually would.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later you start doing that and you sort of look at your bank account and it starts to like sort of...
It's a self-fulfilling thing, right? You get G'd up and you're like, this is exciting.
Like, all right, we're going to make shit happen. Yep. And then when the first purchase come through...
Tell us about that day. So what was the first sort of property you bought?
The first one was a house in Cry in Rosebark Estate.
Yep. Have you still got it?
I do, yes. Yep. I wasn't even going to go look at it. Didn't even know where it was.
So how did it come about?
I pulled up to a property in Cry 20 minutes early for the open house, and I thought, I better just jump on realestate.com and have a look, and found this one at Rose Park. It's open now.
Yep.
Went across there, went and had a look at it, and put an offer in it on it the next morning.
I love that. It's probably a bit of a weird trait, but I've bought the first house I've looked at 3 times, so I'm the same. I think like you and I are probably similar, that you've done the research like in your head. Right, you've done the planning, so like the specific house and what colours the carpet and that doesn't really, no one gives a shit, right? It's just about, does the finances make sense? Is this where I want to be? Is this where I'm going to put my money long term?
Yeah.
Tell us about your strategy. So do you sell or do you just hold?
At the time, I sort of wasn't really sure on the strategy that I wanted to work around.
You just want to get started.
I just wanted to get started and just sort of see how I'd go with trying to accumulate properties. Like I understood over time, you talk to older people, they're like, oh, it constantly gets harder.
Yeah.
You're like, right, well.
And we'll chat to that in a sec because I know you said you got some challenges now. Like as a portfolio gets bigger, borrowings, and that's the same for everyone, right? It's getting harder. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
And then, so I was like, all right, cool. Well, if I can just get the first couple just to build that decent, and then I can build on top of that. So, the first one come about, got that one, and then I sort of thought, all right, well, let's knuckle down. I'm still working the 2 jobs.
Yep.
All right, what can I do? And then I went back to the mortgage broker, and they're like, you don't earn enough. And I was like, all right.
Do you have you stuck with someone from a mortgage broker
I've
perspective?
swapped over a couple of times, It was just one of those things that you just sort of use one. All right, your borrowing capacity's done. They don't really look too hard into it the next time.
Yeah.
So with the second one, I ended up jumping back into welding, doing that full time.
Just to boost your income?
Yeah, just because I knew that the difference between that and earth moving at the time, there was a bit of a difference. So went and done that and sort of sacrificed the job that I loved at the time just to sort of, be able to move forward and put myself 12 months ahead.
Yeah.
And build up another deposit.
So how old were you when you got the second one?
It was 2 years later, so 24.
Yep.
So
what are your parents, are they investors?
No.
Yeah. What do they think you're a madman or they think you're a wizard? What's going on?
They just look at me funny sometimes.
Yeah. So is your brother an investor as well?
My younger brother is,
Yeah.
He's
nice.
He's the one that started it all. So
Yeah.
when he bought his first one and I bought mine, he was talking about his second one. So I was like, all right.
It's so funny. I spoke about in the other episode as well about, there's different things that motivate you. And, whether you come from a background of people that are doing it, you see it around you. It's just like monkey see, monkey do. Or like in this case with your brother, it sounds like it's fucking just competitive.
Yeah.
You just didn't want to be outdone.
Yeah. It's just sort of what it felt like.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to use this, even though if it might not be, I'm just like, it's going to keep me going.
Yeah.
To the point of, that's what I wanted to do.
A good story about that too is that you were hitting roadblocks along the way. Like everyone might look at you and think that, he's just making massive money. It's been easy for him. But the fact that you took up a second job or you gave up your preferred job to go back to the one that paid more money, or you got knocked back from a banker and you thought, fuck this, and went somewhere else and it's just not giving up at the first thing, because if, I'm sure you wouldn't have been anywhere near as successful if you just gave up at the first thing.
That's the thing. That's the way you got to look at it and have that mentality of, all right, what can I change?
Yeah.
Do I have to sacrifice something to be able to move ahead? Can I change jobs? Can I go do something else? And it's just, once you start thinking in that
What
sort
about,
of way,
do you rent your own home or you?
I moved back home a couple of years ago to be able to pull out a lot of money to be able to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
again, that's another story of like, giving up, your own space and going back home because it means you can buy the next one or whatever. So the third property, how is it that when we met? Third one? Yeah. So tell me about that. How old were you when you bought that?
25.
You have to take your shoes off. You're going to keep counting.
25.
Count these shoes.
Yeah.
So right. Only 12 months after the one before that.
Yeah. And that was a funny story. The one that you sold it to me. I was welding at the time again. I was on a short-term contract. So I knew my 3 months of casual was coming up. And I was like, all right, I better get in and start talking.
As in, because when that's over, I can't borrow again for a while because the banks want to see.
I just knew it was going to be a short-term contract.
Yep.
I knew that there was a chance that I might have stayed on, but with the budget coming on, So I think it was, 10 weeks, and I was already chatting to the banks. All right, cool. I've got 2 weeks to go.
Was he like, you're a lunatic?
How much money can I get out of you? And the lady's like, you still got 2 weeks to go. And I was like, I know, I'm ready. I've got a deposit here. We can
So same thing, you just worked hard, saved a deposit, use that. Worked hard, saved a deposit, use that. What about refinancing? You had to do, not to get a better rate or whatever, but to pull equity out of something and buy something else? Or is yours just been the old school way, save a deposit, buy a house?
It was save a deposit. I had to cross-collateralise a couple of lines early on to be able to get the third one, which I knew now is a bit of a mistake. But at that time...
Tell people about that, because I want this to actually help. It's twofold. I want to inspire people that you can do it, and that you don't need a massive income or you don't need to come from an affluent family or whatever. So part of it's like motivation, but the other part's technical. So tell people about what you regret or what didn't go well.
I think more so when I cross-collateralised the 3 properties, I knew for a long time that I wouldn't be able to pull out equity of any of them. So, yeah, when the bank secures all properties against each other, it does make it hard to take money out and, move to other banks to be able to borrow more money, which is their way of locking you in and keeping your business type of thing. So it was only sort of sooner or later that I found that out and had to, try and overcome a few roadblocks. But we managed that in the end. I ended up going through a mortgage broker in Sydney to be able to do it.
Yeah, just referral or?
Yeah, just a referral, So he ended up working out a few different ways and got all three of them unlocked. Yeah. So all on separate loans. They weren't.
How recently is this?
That was back 4 years ago now.
Yep.
So it was sort of just before COVID.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the interest rates started coming down and I sort of looked at it. I'm like, all right, cool. I wanted my acre block, wanted to build my dream house.
Was this for yourself to live?
This is what, for me to live. And I was like, cool, I'll have a few investment properties that will help pay it off. And at that stage, Bannockburn, they sold out of what their acreage was. There was nothing that really sort of I felt was going to be good enough for me. And I was like, oh, the bank's going to lend me money. What should I do? Yeah. I sort of sat on it for a while. And I was like, all right, it's time to start looking interstate and see what I can do.
Oh, that's right, because you bought outside of Victoria as well.
Yeah.
Yep. How did that come about? Did you listen to a podcast? Did you read a book? I
just sort of, a few podcasts.
Where did you buy?
Sunshine Coast, Mountain Creek. So I always enjoyed Mooloolaba and up that way in the fancier part of the areas. And I thought, if I can't afford the most fanciest, I'll go to the second best. And sooner or later, they'll soon to grow. And
how did you – I know the way you operate, mate. You're a fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants guy. I think you looked at that house I sold you once and you just made a decision in the driveway. But tell people about the situation to buy, because that's a whole different skill set, having either the confidence or the due diligence or whatever you call it to buy when you're not local. That's a whole set of different skills. And
it's definitely something I didn't see myself doing, but I thought, you know what, there's always risks and I'm willing to take a few. I was always a bit younger, so I was like, if things go backwards, well,
I've got time to figure it
I've
out.
got time to figure it out and make my way back. But
I reckon that's a big part of your story, is that you got big balls and you're willing to have a crack. And if it doesn't work out, because thinking back now, like with, just the couple that you've got, all close to each other, did it go through your mind maybe to diversify and try and buy the stuff? Like, everyone was going through that thing of, some of your ones have definitely got that, but ones of the big backyard, cut the backyard off or buy a corner block or, if you had a diversify mindset, or are you just like, fuck, buy what I'm good at, stick to what I know?
If I knew what I knew now, it'd be
what would you do different?
It'd be a different story.
What would you do different?
But obviously, when you had that borrowing capacity of, say 450 amount, you've only borrowed 350. You're sort of looking at those 500 square blocks. I probably would have went to push those 700s just to be able to hold for long term.
100%.
But at the time,
I think my dad probably put that mindset into me, whether it's right or wrong. But he said to me, live within your means, borrow what you can. I remember there was a house for sale. I don't want to die hearing this story, but there was a house for sale in Austin Street in Newtown when I first moved to Geelong. I was like 19 or whatever in 2003 or 2004, and the house was $425,000 in Austin Street, Newtown, like premium, right? Yeah. Probably the fourth best street off Paco. Could have bought it for $425,000. I didn't take my dad through it, but he saw it. And then there was a house in Leopold that I could have bought, ex-commission house. It was like carton a day smoker. It was, that was $222,000. And my dad's like, mate, it's a no-brainer. Just buy what you can afford, pay it off, buy the next one or whatever. And there's no right or wrong, right? But it kind of is at the same time, because if I bought that house now, it kills me because I did an appraisal on it a couple of years ago and it was worth like 1.2 and they haven't touched it. That same house in Leopold I bought for $222 is probably worth $422, you know what I mean? Like massive kick in the balls. But it just comes down to, so I love that mindset of, you've still done well, but you could have done better. And that's a good lesson to pass on to a friend or whatever, or anyone that's listening in the podcast. Like, being conservative doesn't always pay off. Like, so when I started my portfolio, I just bought a lot of like 1 and 2 bedroom units. Same thing, really low deposit. You buy a house with like, $20,000 or $30,000, and you know, at the time I was all G'd up thinking how smart I was, but now I look at you, right, and you bought, like, and I know 500 squares isn't massive, but I've got body corporates, I've got all that extra shit, I've got aging rental properties, whereas, you know, you want to knock yours down, have at it. You know, slap 2 townies on it, off you go. Whereas I've really pigeonholed myself with those first couple of additions to the portfolio. So I think like just spending more time talking to different people, hearing different people's ideas and having a crack, but obviously just surrounding yourself with other people having a go. So, mate, we've run out of time, but to wrap it up, I guess, what are some things that maybe you regret or you could have done differently, or you'd like to see other people avoid making that mistake?
A few things that you probably would have done differently. I probably would have tried to learn a bit more earlier on before I sort of put my toes in the water. Like, I understand people have got to get in when they can, but there is a lot of information out there now between podcasts, books, you know, all that stuff, internet. You've got different websites that you can search vacancy rates for different areas, everything like that. You've got everything on hand. So it's just a matter of time and just sort of, if you're willing to put a lot of time into it, you don't necessarily have to buy the expensive courses to figure it all out. Like, you know, just like a podcast like yourself, you sort of gain good knowledge and stuff like that. And through talking to people that have done it, that makes a massive difference.
What would you have, are there different suburbs, like you said about the land size that you would have bought, but like, is there anything else that you would have targeted that you wish you had of? Are there any properties that you saw that you wish you had have bought?
Yes and no.
Probably no, because you just buy it. You see it, you buy it.
Yeah, like at the time, you can only buy what you can buy, and the bank will tell you X amount, and you sort of, as you said, you don't want to overdo it, that you're sort of stressing about it, but you sort of want to be within that gap that you're happy. Yeah. So, it's just sort of how we had to do it then, and you sort of look back now and you think, oh, well, I've had a lucky run with it so far. Yeah. I think you make your own luck though, like, and even with all this stuff that's going on, you know, everyone's, there'll be stories of people that haven't done well that are coming up on the podcast as well. But I think you make your own luck, and your story, as I said, I think yours just comes down to having a crack and being motivated and being competitive. Yeah, it's a good story. So what's next for you? Like, what would you like to see add to your portfolio? Obviously the future house. That's a big one.
Whether
I do got to sell down some of the portfolio, but obviously at the minute I'm just sort of sitting on the sidelines to see what goes on. Yep. I'm sort of lucky that I did buy the properties when I did, and I've sort of been smart that, you know, my cash flow is still fairly high at the minute. Yep. I've had a few loans that have just dropped off for the last couple of months.
And you've still got cash flow.
Yeah, and I've got another few that will be end of October, so I should roughly still be around that 400-500 a week cash flow. Yeah, which will keep me going, which will, you know, help me to be able to hold them and pay for all the rates and all the utilities.
I guess when's the point where enough's enough? You know what I mean? And it is time to start looking after yourself.
Yeah, well, like, do
you feel like it's now?
I feel like it is. I thought, you know, at the start of COVID, I think...
How old are you now?
28. Yeah. So I was sort of hoping that, you know, I'd be able to get that one and then slow down. Yeah. But obviously COVID been and gone too fast.
It's also addictive though, I reckon, isn't it? And I love G'ing you up. Like every time I see you buy something new, I give you shit on social media and, you know, slumlord. And like, you know, we get that a lot, obviously being an investor and that. So, but as I said, man, it's been pretty cool watching your story and watching what you're doing. And thanks for not asking too many questions and just coming on the podcast and just chewing the fat and seeing what happens.
But and hopefully someone gets something out of it.
That's it. Like I said, I really think there'll be an episode for everyone, but I think this one's really about like young crew that want to get a start and maybe think that it's impossible because you need a huge income or whatever. And I think, like, you know, 150 is nothing to sneeze at. But as you said, your first one, you're on 70, 90, so on and so on. But yeah, just like having a crack. Yep. So, mate, thank you so much for joining.
No worries.
You're a legend. Cheers.